Now, the South African Students' Congress is planning a national day of action over the conditions of TVET colleges. It says these colleges do not receive the same attention and resources as universities. For more on this, I am joined by SASCO's National Working Committee member, Ngobe Lali. Ngobe, good evening, and thank you very much for your time here on the Newsfeed Late Night. You are going ahead then with your national day of action. What are the issues that you want to raise over this action?
Thank you very much. Good evening to you, and good evening to your listeners and your viewers in South Africa right across. At first, we have taken a position many years before to say there's a serious crisis in terms of the TVET sector. Even if you could go to your own village or your township, you would note that the students who are coming from TVET colleges are viewed as the children of a lesser God. And we have decided this year that after quite a number of years, we've decided to take it to the streets, because we have for some time engaging the department, in particular the person responsible for the TVET colleges in terms of the issues of infrastructure and as far as curriculum content. Because you would know, as it relates to the question of curriculum content, there are many students whom have graduated from these TVET colleges, but in their nature they are unemployable, because part of the prerequisites in order for them to be employable, they must go for school experience, they must go for internships and all of these things. And what we have been encountering and finding it difficult right across the country is that students left, right, and center have been struggling to get those internships, those work experiences in order for them to get their qualifications. Yeah. So we have decided this year that we must take it to the streets, because we've been engaging for so long. And if you go right across the country in terms of infrastructure, if you go to Northwest province, you are going to come across an institution there called alleges or TVET College. If you come to Eastern Cape, you are going to go to Mount Fletcher. You are going to go to KSD TVET College, where students, they do not necessarily live in a condition where it's conducive for students to progress in their nature.
Because I know when you're talking infrastructure is a broad term, and people might not understand what exactly are you saying. Are you saying there are no ablution facilities, for example? Are you saying there are no windows? Are you saying there is no accommodation? What exactly are you saying when you're talking infrastructure?
TVET colleges of South Africa, they don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have infrastructure in terms of classes. They do not have even in institutions that offer electrical engineering, you would find that there is no electricity in that classroom. Hence, I had made an example about a TVET college in Mount Fletcher, where when you go to that institution, there is no accommodation for students. Students live in one room with 10 people who are living in the same room without proper sanitation. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about infrastructure. Equally, I talk about the underqualified lecturers that are there in that institution, which will surely have an impact, in fact, in terms of what you would produce as a qualified graduate that is a product of that particular institution.
Have you engaged the Minister of Higher Education on this? Because I'll tell you why, every time we speak of overcrowding, for example, at institutions of higher learning, and I'm talking here particularly universities, the minister generally says, yeah, the problem is there is this obsession by students to go to university when there are TVET colleges in this country that can really give them a good qualification. In fact, stand them in a better chance of getting employed. So he really speaks highly of TVET colleges in this country as an alternative, and not as an inferior alternative, but an alternative that will give a good quality education and the same type of education that you would get anywhere in the world. So have you engaged him on these issues?
Yes, we've been engaging with the department, in particular the Minister of Education, and I agree with you to say ideally TVET colleges would have been an option and institutions of choice. But for as long as we're unable to address these critical issues that we are talking about. And we understand as a South African Students' Congress to say there is a person responsible for TVET sector, which is responsible to respond to all of these kinds of problems as we've presented to them year in, year out during our Right to Learn rally that we normally have as an organization. Then that person is the DG of the Department of Higher Education. There is many a times where we've engaged with him as a person responsible, a person that all these principals of these institutions, they go and account to. And he has failed his task as a person. Hence, we're calling for him to be removed from his position as a DG of the Department of Higher Education.
Yeah. What is wrong with the curriculum? How also saying, well, the curriculum of TVET colleges is outdated and it needs to be revamped. So what needs to happen and who needs to do what?
Thank you. I've already alluded in terms of how underqualified the lecturers that you come across in those institutions. If you go to, for instance, Walter Sisulu University of Fort Hare, you are going to come across a qualification called public administration or public management. It's a duplication that is done in the TVET sector. As you are seated there, you would know a preference that would be given to any graduate is going to be that which is coming from a university, not that which is coming from a TVET college. Hence, I am saying there is a problem with what needs to be offered in those TVET colleges, because you need not to produce a duplication of what would be viewed as a duplication of what is produced in the universities. So hence we are calling for a different form and a restructuring in terms of what is offered in those institutions, so that you do not have a duplication of different qualifications that are there in universities, instead of providing something else that would create jobs, that would make graduates of TVET colleges their own bosses in terms of the businesses that they would start because of the qualifications that they would have acquired in those institutions.
Gobelali, let me thank you very much for joining us tonight. That is SASCO's National Working Committee member. They're going ahead with their march and their national action over the conditions of TVET colleges.